episode of the All Yellow Jackets podcast. I am your host, Jackson Caudell, the publisher of AllYellowJackets.com. Recording here Thursday afternoon, nearly about 48 hours from now, will be Bobby Dodd kickoff against Bowling Green. I'm here to prime you, get you ready for that. It's going to be a big game this weekend, looking to get to 500 for the first time since 2017. Like, think about that. Like that's a pretty big deal. And it's also just, looking smooth, getting ready for a big primetime game against Miami in a couple next weekend. So, um, yeah, here to get you ready. We're going to talk a little basketball at the end. I know it was still a little bit of ways from basketball, but schedules were released this week for both men's and women's teams this year. So, wanted to dive into that just a little bit. But as always, first thing you want to do, if you're watching on YouTube, would really love the support if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. I love covering this team, love making this kind of content for you guys. So if you can do that, leave a review on YouTube, 5 stars, 3 stars, 1 star, whatever you think this deserves. Would really appreciate that. And let me hear your thoughts. Always looking for feedback and ways to improve this. So I guess let's dive. Well, I guess before we dive right into it, some news today. Like I know not everybody loves uniforms and uniform talk and how you look and everything. They just want the results of the game. But it was noteworthy today. Georgia Tech dropped some new what they call ghost uniforms. I thought they looked pretty cool. The numbers are supposed to glow in the dark. I know it's an afternoon game, so it's not going to be the perfect time to drop these, but you never know with the uncertainty of game times and everything. You don't really know when you're going to get a night game, so it's cool to debut it now. I thought they looked pretty good. There's an article up on the website over at All Yellow Jackets. If you want to see them, go check it out. I'm sure 99% of y'all have seen them or something. And like I said, I know uniforms and what they're wearing is not everybody's cup of tea, but it is out there. I thought they looked pretty good. But so let's dive into the game. And I guess, we always start with big picture stuff here, looking before we really dive into the nitty gritty this week. So got a big win last week, 2-2. Got a win on the road against Wake Forest, who I'm not sure how good of a team they are this year. Like they're still a bit of an unknown. They're 3-1 with their only loss to being Tech. Their strength of schedule is horrendous, but I do think you can take solace knowing that Dave Clawson, like he just goes to bowl games at Wake Forest. He always puts out good offenses. He goes to bowl games. He wins 7, 8 games a year. In the recent years when they had Sam Hartman and A.T. Perry and some really really talented players, they were winning. They were up in the top 10 in the AP poll. They were ranked most of the time. Like they may not be a great team this year, but I think to go on the road and get a win like that, and especially the way it was won, like Georgia Tech's offense gets a lot of the attention this year, but defensively last week was really where they shined. Eight sacks, 5 turnovers, like that'll do. And now you're looking for repeat performances, something to build off of, which is the players told us after the game last week was something they're really looking to do. And you're no disrespect, you're running into a good opponent to do it to this week. So 2-2 overall, would get to 3-2 with a win this week. And like I said, it'd be the first time since 2017 they'd been above 500 heading into October. So that is a really big deal. I know they were above 500 in 2020 when they won that first game against Florida State. Everybody knows what happens after that. So it's a really big game, and I think the main thing, injury report, Brent Key did talk injury today before I get into anything else. Chase Lane remains out. I think, he is available in an emergency situation, much like last week, but you don't want it to come to that. Like that emergency situation means injuries. So you don't want it to come to that. I don't think they're going to need him this week. Obviously Key would never admit that publicly, but I think the thing is, okay, we're playing Bowling Green this week. We can win this. We should be able to win this game in a lot of different ways without him, even though we'd love to have him. You're going to need him next week if you have any, if you want to have any chance and put yourself in the best chance of success against Miami and maybe pull an upset on the road. So he is out. Gordon Williams is out a couple weeks. He went down early in the game against Wake Forest. Jakai Leftwich came in and I actually played fine. Like, he's had his ups and downs during his career for sure. But he came in and played pretty well. You could look at his grades on PFF. The offensive line as a whole, from a pass blocking perspective, was actually really good, and didn't allow him to get sacks. And Wake Forest, they were leading the conference in sacks heading into that game. So pretty good job. He is almost definitely getting the start at right tackle. it said Key said Williams will be out a couple weeks. I think they're hoping to get him out of the bye week against Boston College, and that's a home game. So hate to see Jordan go down. Talented player. He's made some improvements this year, along with pretty much everybody on the offensive line. So we hope those two can get back healthy quickly. Um, all right, so we got a 3:30 kickoff this weekend against Bowling Green, who is 1-3 up to this point. Head coach is Scott Leffler, who's been there for a little bit. Um, Bowling Green, their only win this year is against an FCS opponent in Eastern Illinois. They have They had lost by 10 to Liberty. They played Michigan, lost 31-6 or 31-7, I believe, and then they got housed last weekend by Ohio. And I'll say, when healthy, Ohio is probably the best team in the MAC. Their quarterback Curtis Rourke. If you want to hear a hot take today, Curtis Rourke, the quarterback at Ohio, he would start at Alabama over any of their quarterbacks. Like I'll put my name to that one. He is a very, very good quarterback. Ohio's a good team, and they put it on Bowling Green last week. And when you look at Bowling Green, a few things stand out. Their passing game has all kinds of issues, and a lot of it stems from just questionable quarterback play. And they turn the ball over a ton. They're not great at blocking anybody. The most impressive thing about this team, when you just look at the stats, is their pass defense. Like let's see, they're like I think fourth in the MAC, and they're up there like 28th in the country in pass defense. When you take a closer look at it, though, teams not throwing on them much because they're running the ball so well. Like Michigan, I think threw 13 times against them. Like they were not letting JJ McCarthy get out there and just freelance it or anything. Ohio, they didn't even run. I just talked about how good their quarterback was. He only had to throw 16 times and completed 13 passes. Like there's just a lot of ways to beat this Bowling Green team, and yeah, the pass defense may look impressive on paper, but I just think when this is by far the best passing offense they played. Like just that's the best way I can articulate it. And I think offensively, Georgia Tech should be able to have any kind of success that they want to. This was it wasn't terrible last week. Obviously, you put up 30 points, you did some things well, but red zone offense was inefficient. It was while I was thrilled to see Aiden Burr hit 3 field goals, touchdowns are better. 7 points is better than 3. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. So, what I'm looking for, number one, out of the offense this week is cut the turnovers down. Like, this is not a game you want to be sloppy in, because when Georgia Tech is a 22-point favorite. They don't get to say that a lot right now. Hopefully in the future they can, but right now they can't say they're a big favorite a lot of the time. Generally how teams pull big upsets, like they force turnovers and other teams are sloppy. The favorite team usually beats themselves. Like you have to have a lot of things go right to pull an upset of that caliber, and it's not even just the upset. You don't want Bowling Green hanging around, because that's just not a good look. Like that's just not the look you want to give out. You want to come in, handle your business, and offensively, the number one thing is just keep the turnovers down. And they've done a good job of that. Like that's not something like I'm harping on it here, man. That's not something they've done. Like Haynes King pressed a little bit at times last week. There was maybe it was the third or fourth drive in the game. He was trying to go deep to Eric Singleton a couple times. He forced a throw. It was almost intercepted. Then he did it again just like a play or two later, and it was intercepted. That was pretty much the only mistake of the game. But you just don't want to see those type of things and give Bowling Green any sort of life, because you want to come in, cut the head off the snake, get out. Like that's the main thing here. And you giving them any hope or chance to win the game. You do that by turnovers, keep that down. Number two, as I was hinting at earlier, just clean up the red zone issues. Like just finish off drives when you get in the red zone. Now, if they just go out there, score a bunch of points via explosive plays, that's nice, but it doesn't really solve your red zone question, and that'll still be lingering going into the Miami game. Like I want to see them score points, and they want to see themselves score points in really any way possible. But when you get down in the red zone, when the field gets tighter, and you got to stay out of the second and third and longs, which was something they did not do a good job of last week, and be able to punch the ball in the red zone. You know what would help doing that? And that brings me to point number 3, and that's running the ball effectively. When you look at it, the numbers are fine from last week. That they're not going to blow you away, but they're not terrible. Like Jamal Haynes had a big touchdown run at the end of the game, but really from drive to drive and down to down, they didn't run the ball all that well. That was Trey Cooley, who has been pretty exceptional through the first few games. Wasn't really able to do a whole lot. Jamal Haynes, I think, had 95 yards on 18 carries. Had a pretty good game. Brent Key said that Dante Smith is back and healthy. He's been banged up the past few weeks. He would give a nice if somebody's not getting going, like Dante could really come in and maybe hit an explosive play. He really like having a guy that experienced behind those two guys is valuable. I do think so. With Lane out, obviously you're going to see Singleton draw another start. Malik Rutherford, Dominic Blaylock, which he did say Dominic Blaylock was day to day. I would assume he plays, but you never know. Like it's at least noteworthy he said that. So Abdul could come in. He caught a touchdown last week. Christian Leary's had a good couple weeks. So just really those are the three things I'm looking for on the offensive side of the ball. Be efficient in the red zone, be able to score touchdowns, run the ball more effectively, and don't shoot yourself in the foot with turnovers. That's the main thing. That is the number one thing. You don't want to give them any hope. You don't want to allow anything like that to happen. You want to come in, dominate, take care of business on that side of the ball. And I think the thing that would probably help with running the ball is probably the run blocking. Like I could talk about for the improvement of the line. It's been tremendous, especially in the pass blocking grades. Like you look at pass blocking efficiency via PFF, Georgia Tech's offensive line is number 2. That is incredible. Like think about where we were a year ago and think about where we are now in terms of offensive line play, and it's like you can't even tell the difference. It's just so much better. Like they've done. Jeep Wade deserves a ton of credit for the job that he's done up front this year, and hopefully he can continue to improve these guys. Ethan McKinney's a true freshman. He's going to get better and better each game. With Jordan Williams being out, like having a guy that's experienced like Jakai coming in, like that's a big help. So overall, pass blocking very good. Run blocking could use a little bit of work. You can see that the rushing numbers. Really any metric you want to use, the run blocking needs to be better. And you're facing a defense that couldn't stop a cold. Like it's they're pretty poor on the defensive side of the ball. Rushing yards allowed per game, 154.2, which is 95th in the country, 6th in the MAC. And just to put that in perspective, like the MAC is probably the second worst conference, I would say, in college football this year. After I think they're probably above Conference USA, which is pretty bad. But the MAC is not a strong conference. Like they have some decent. Like I think Ohio is a pretty good team. Um, there's a couple others in there. But this is not a Maction podcast. There's other things for that. So overall, like their run defense isn't very good. I think their passing defense numbers are inflated because teams don't throw the ball on them that much. So cut turnovers down, run the ball better, be more efficient in the red zone. If you do that, I think they can play pretty close to perfect on offense. I don't really have any concerns about the passing game. Haynes King's been very good. The receivers have been very good, and I'm sure at some point in the game, Eric Singleton's going to catch a touchdown because he gets one per game at least. So he's been tremendous so far. Let's transition over to the other side of the ball where Georgia Tech, up until last game, had been kind of a mess, and then they had a great performance. Bowling Green has been a disaster on offense. Throw away that game against an FCS opponent. They've been really bad. They've scored under 10 points in 2 straight games against Michigan and Ohio. Last week they only scored 7. Only averaging 18 points a game, which is 7th in the MAC and 119th nationally. That's not great. Their quarterback situation is Connor Bazelak, who I don't know if many, I'm sure some of y'all might recognize that name. He started at Missouri, went to Indiana. It wasn't working out there. Now he's at Bowling Green, and it's been okay. He's thrown for 499 yards this year, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, completing 56.3% of his passes. He had a disastrous first game against Liberty. I think they had 5 total turnovers in that game. Their other quarterback, Camden Orth, he's 15 to 23 this year, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And look, their passing attack, it's not great. And that's probably been a strength of Georgia Tech's through the first few games. Has been their pass defense. Like Kenan Johnson coming up with the interceptions he did last week. Clayton Powell-Lee has been very good this year. Jalen King, ACC defensive back of the week, like he had a very good performance this year, or last week, excuse me. So this is not where you're going to see Georgia Tech's secondary be tested. What you just don't want to have any breakdowns or miscommunications that allow big plays, because I'm sure early on they're going to throw the kitchen sink at you. They're going to do anything they can to try to hit a big play, hit an explosive, and try to get ahead early and try to keep the defense on their heels. Because Georgia Tech so far this year. So I'm sure that Bowling Green is going to come out, try to throw some haymakers over the top. Receiver wise, their tight end is pretty good. Harold Fannin Jr. 11 catches, 144 yards and a touchdown, which is pretty good for a college tight end, to be honest with you. But he is probably the only guy you might want to just circle and say, all right, he could give us maybe a matchup problem. Their run defense or their rushing offense, it's not anything special. 128 yards a game, seventh in the MAC, 94th in the country. Look, the run defense has done what it's performance last week. I know they allowed over 200 yards again, but I mean, damn, Wake ran the ball 52 dang times. Like you're going to get some. It's basically like when you play an option team. Like, yeah, they may have ran for 250, 300 yards on us, but they ran it 60, 70 times. So run defense wasn't a huge concern last week. They did let a couple of explosives get off the edge a little bit. Missed tackling is still, it's hit or miss. The pass rush showed up in a big, big way last week. I talked about last week, Wake was one of the near the bottom in the ACC in terms of sacks allowed, and Georgia Tech answered the call. 8 sacks. Kyle Kennard led the way with 4. KJ Wallace got one on a blitz. There were some other guys getting involved. It was really what they needed, and now you just got to put one performance and put another one on top of it. Like, that's just really what you're looking to do. Just keep stacking performances like that. That's how you improve as a football team. Like, that's just they gotta. There's gonna be much better offenses down the road, including next. Like, Miami is gonna be a very big test for this defense. North Carolina, Clemson, Georgia down the road. You want to see another good performance from this defense, because if you come out and have a bad performance, then you don't want to have that against Bowling Green. So obviously, Kyle Kennard will get the headlines. He played very well last week. I want to see him put another good performance together. And just the number one thing I want to see is the run defense. I won't say no missed tackles. That's almost impossible for anybody. But keep the missed tackles to a minimum. Make tackles for loss. Like, they've still got to do a better job of creating loss plays and getting teams behind the chains. Because when you're not putting teams behind the chains, they're just going to keep running it. Like, you're not going to be put in advantageous situations where you can rush the passer. Because look, I don't think this is an elite pass rushing team, but I think one of the reasons their numbers have been so low up to that point was because teams are just going to continue to run the ball like that. I want to see them get some stops on early downs, create some havoc. If you force Bowling Green into long down and distance situations, you're bound to get a turnover from one of these quarterbacks. Like, they are 119th in the country in turnover margin. I think they're minus 11. They're minus 5. They're 119th they're 119th in turnover margin, minus 5 for the year. It's been really ugly for Bowling Green on that side of the ball, no matter what quarterback they're playing. So this is another confidence booster for the Georgia Tech defense, and it's one they're going to need. Like that, I think that's something I'm looking to see this week, because I've said it the past couple of weeks. I sound like a broken record, but I've gotten to the point where the offense, like, I don't really worry about it. Like, it's obviously I want to see them have a good performance. If they play good defenses, they could have trouble, but like they've proven that week to week they're pretty known. Like they go out and get the job done. Now it's the defense. You got to go out and have another good game. You had one last week. Can you do it again? Also watching the linebacker snap counts, like they've been splitting it up a little bit. Trinilius Tatum and Paul Maala, like they start and get the majority of it. But Andre White in limited snaps this year has been like sneaky good. And that's, I know PFF grades are not for everybody. Not everybody digs that kind of thing and or believes it really. But when you have a guy, I think he has a 90.4 grade overall in like a limited action this year. I kind of want to see if they can get him more involved in different ways. Like, I know in the preseason, Bill Conley over at ESPN, who does a lot of really good work, he wrote Andre White as one of the players he was excited about to watch for Tech, just because he, in his limited amount of snaps at A&M, he created a lot of havoc, and like so far he's done that. Like, I'm interested to see if maybe his snap count goes up. Kyle Eford's been playing a pretty good bit. I want to see maybe if he can earn more snaps going forward with his play. Linebacker play has not been great. When you rank near the bottom of the country in run defense, like that's what that'll do to you. So I want to see maybe if some guys can earn more back there. The secondary is playing well right now. They forced some turnovers last week. I want to see them do it again. And then defensive line. of course, the run defense just takes priority over everything, given the way the year's gone. But also the pass rush. I don't know how many times Bowling Green. I think Bowling Green's going to come in and try to hit explosives, but I think their main goal is going to be to try to test this run defense in any way they can to see if Georgia Tech can get pressure and put them in long down and distance situations. These two quarterbacks turn the ball over. I promise. Like they're that's just what they do. That's how it's going. And just on a side note, like I know that like Key brought it up this week. They did play a tight game against Michigan in the first half. I talked about it earlier this week. Michigan is screwing around right now. Like I don't think they're like the easy opponents they're playing up until they play Penn State and Ohio State. I don't think they're taken seriously. Like they're running playing at a very slow pace. They're not looking to really dominate and blow anybody out. I wouldn't read too much into that as a saying, oh, they played Michigan close. Georgia Tech needs to be careful. No, it's Michigan knew they had the game won before they kicked it off, got up early, and then just like they played slower than Army and Navy do. Like that it was that they're playing a really funky brand of football right now. But Bowling Green is just they're not a very good team. They're probably bottom 10, bottom 15 in the country. And when you talk about X factors for a game like this, to me it's just come out. Don't be overlooking them. Like I know I'm sitting here saying they're not a very good team, and they're not. But like as a player, you don't want to read too much into that. Come out, handle your business, play a clean game. I don't want to see any. Obviously, I want to see this team come out as healthy as it can be. Um, because you got a big presence next week. I'll talk plenty more about the Miami game next week, but it's a good test to see. Okay, how much have we improved this year? And I just don't want to see anybody go down against Bowling Green. That's my whenever there's a game with a big spread in it, that should be your number one goal. Come out of it dominate. Come out of it healthy. That's what I want to see. I want to see if the offense can just be more efficient than it's been, not settle for field goals, and if the defense can have another good performance, and if they can have their best game of the year against the run. That's what I want to see. If they can have their best game of the year against the run, because you're not playing a good offense. Like their tight end is pretty good. But other than that, I don't think anybody on Bowling Green is going to play in the NFL. I don't think many of them would play in the ACC. Like it's you're overwhelmingly more talented than your opponent, and I just want to see them come out and play like it. So I know that was kind of a long-winded list of X factors, but look, I just listed them all for the offense and the defense. Don't turn the ball over, stop the run, be explosive. Boom, there's a blowout. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and really give you much more of a prediction. I expect Georgia Tech to come out and win this game. I would probably pick them to cover. Look, I'm in no way a gambling expert. You should never take my advice on that ever. I would probably the spread I think right now is 21.5 or 22. I would probably pick them to cover that. I would worry if I was doing that. Georgia Tech getting up big and Bowling Green getting some sort of backdoor cover. And I would probably take the over as well because I do think they played well last week, but there's always a chance Bowling Green hits a couple of explosive runs because of poor tackling. I think Georgia Tech can score at will on this Bowling Green defense, so I would probably take Tech to cover, but you probably might take the over too because it could. I think there's a chance Tech could score 50 this week. I'm anxious to see maybe if they can go put a number up like that and get ready for Miami. So that's my prediction and breakdown. Um, Earlier let's move transition away from one sport to another. Also volleyball, big match this Friday against Virginia Tech. They're 11-1 this year, doing really well. Like that, I can't shout them out enough. They play really well. And let's go from one sport to another. Let's talk a little basketball. Look, basketball season's still a little bit away, but Damon Stoudemire and Nell Fortner both did meet with the media this week, and the schedules came out that night. I think it's the schedule is pretty interesting. We'll start with the men's side first. You do have an exhibition against Clark Atlanta, November 1st. Non-conference schedule includes Georgia Southern, Howard, UMass Lowell, at Cincinnati. You have the ACC SEC Challenge, which I'm sure people will look forward to. That game is at home, so Mississippi State, and then they get one early conference game. They play Duke at home, and look, I don't need to tell anybody Duke is going to be one of the favorites to win the ACC, possibly be a one seed in the NCAA tournament. So that's going to be a big game at McCamish. So ACC play doesn't really pick back up until January with a road trip to Florida State. They do go to Duke and also host Virginia at home. Look, I think it's pretty evenly spread as far as the game goes. you don't really see a ton of games where they're playing one ranked team in front of, at least as of right now. Like that obviously can change, but I have some interesting contests at home. Obviously, Duke being one of them. They do have to go to Miami, who's coming off a Final Four run. So look, everybody's in it. You get two. You get two SEC non-conference games. Obviously, playing Georgia in Athens this year. Mississippi State comes to Atlanta, so there'll be some nice tests early on for Damon Stoudemire, and we'll see how they. I do want to see how they fare against Duke early in the season, because that could give you a glimpse at how the rest of the season could go, and obviously it's really early in conference play, so get would be huge for the team. As far as the women's side goes, that they do play some very very good teams this year, and the non-conference schedule for them had been pretty well known up to that point, but the full ACC schedule had not been released up to that point yet. So look, I think their season starts and they end a little bit earlier. I think they end in late February. So look, if you have a chance to come out and see both of these teams this year, be sure to do it. I know everybody's focused on football right now, rightfully so, but the women's team's looking to have a bounce back performance this year. I think they're going to get it. Like I know they had 2 straight tournament appearances before last year. A little bit of a down season, disappointing, obviously. But hearing Fortner speak on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, she sounded really confident in her team. So this year they do get a game against Louisville, Miami. Both made big runs last year. Like nobody needs to tell you how good Louisville women's basketball is. It's very, very good. That'll be a good measuring stick for them. Miami, I believe they made an Elite Eight run. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do think they did make an Elite Eight run, and they played both of those teams this year later in the year. So it'll be interesting to see where they're at that point. So look, we're still a month away. ACC tip off is, I believe, October 25th. I'll be there. It's going to be a ton of content coming to you that way. But until then, hopefully everybody can come out to Bobby Dodd and give a nice crowd, give a nice home field advantage, and see what this team can do. It's a really good opportunity to get to 3-2 before a big game next week. So anxious to see what they have, see if they can just. They've done a good job at cleaning up their mistakes from week to week, and we'll see if they can do it this week. But for anybody joining in, really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, again, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell to let you know when any new content comes out. If you're listening on podcast form, where I'm sure a lot of you do, be sure to give us a rating, leave a review, tell us what you'd like to see going forward, and we're going to try to make this the best Georgia Tech experience it can be for the fans. So that's the main goal here, and any feedback would really help with that. So hopefully, good crowd Saturday. Come out if you're able to. And I will check back in with you next week to recap this and look forward to a big, big game against Miami.